What's going on, friends? Bad Guy Cam here with a different version of our NPBA Season 4 Week 6 battle versus Psycho and the Gainesville Gardevoirs. As you can tell, things didn't go quite as planned. Apparently, when you are cleaning up your hard drives and the file you're exporting accidentally gets deleted, it's deleted for good and you kind of can't get it back. So I'm having to do a live... or not a live, it's not a live battle, but we're doing a post commentary on our week 6 battle. We're not going to be doing a team builder, obviously, or anything like that. We're just going to run through the battle. We'll talk just briefly here about the team, and just kind of do like an introduction, and then we'll jump into the battle itself while I'll be doing some talking through of my thoughts. Yeah, so unfortunately we did lose all the base content. However, really scary team that we're up against this week. The Gainesville Gardevoirs are at 4-1. We were 1-4 going into this battle. That being said, we had a big, scary team in front of us that we were trying to get through. You can see this week he brought, that's a Mega Charizard Y, Rillaboom, Jolteon, Suicune, Latias, and the Heatran. There were a couple things I was a little surprised to see. I did think the Donphan, or he had a Donphan on his team, I thought was going to come, so that the Heatran could be a bit more offensive. I do think that looking at the team, I was very scared for the Suicune and the Charizard. Those were the two things I looked at and said, those are going to cause a lot of problems to my team. As a brief team introduction for our team, I guess we could call it, it's not really a team builder, but we brought a Nasty Plot, Heavy Duty Boots Thundurus. We brought a Rain Dance Inteleon to battle the weather from the Mega Charizard. That Mega Charizard hits so hard when the sun's up. And then the Jolteon gets things like Weather Ball. I did think there was a possibility the Jolteon could come. I didn't know where it was going to fit in, but we do see it. It is faster than our Inteleon, so it makes sense that he would bring it. Also faster than our Moltres. As soon as I saw that on Team Preview, it wasn't really much of a surprise. I didn't think he was going to bring it, but here we are. I was like halfway through my own team. So that's why we have the Inteleon. Moltres is coming this week as a Choice Specs variant. Went more offensive, hopefully trying to throw off my opponent, thinking that I'm bringing like a defog set, defensive set that we normally brought. Our defogger this week is going to be Mew. Mew is very utility with defog and knockoff and roar. One of the ways that we're able to handle like a setup Calm Mind Suicune was our Mew that we brought. That's one of the important things to point out. Thundurus was also an answer to Suicune. Thundurus just was very good for this matchup all around. Como-O we're bringing this week as a defensive variant with Toxic and Stealth Rocks. Between Body Press and Dragon Claw, we're able to hit pretty much most things on the team. And then where we are defensively, we can take a lot of hits. So this was a good Rillaboom answer. This was a good Jolteon answer. This was a good Heatran answer. Defensively, Como-O actually did a lot of really good, looked really good on paper this week. And then the last mon we were bringing is our Sylveon, Iris, Wish with Screens, and then Hyper Voice. So we tried to mix it up a little bit this week. And let's see how this goes. Looking at this on Team Preview, when this came up, I started looking at the matchup, and I knew immediately that either Rillaboom or Jolteon were going to be his lead. I really wanted in prep to lead with Inteleon, hoping that he might try to get his Charizard in immediately to Mega Evolve. But then looking at my team, Rillaboom and Jolteon really made the most sense for him to lead with. With that in mind, I decided to lead with my Sylveon and get screens up immediately. So let's see what happens. Sylveon comes out, Jolteon comes out. I think this is fantastic. Most likely he's, in my mind at this point, I'm thinking he's probably either like a Specs variant or a Life Orb variant. So I decide I'm going to go ahead and get some screens up. We see he's faster and he goes for the Toxic with the Light Screen. We also see that he's faster, which we knew that was going to happen regardless, but we did not see the Volt Switch, which I'm guessing he went for the Toxic, thinking I either stay in and I get Toxic, or I go into Thundurus expecting the Volt Absorb, or to use my Volt Absorb ability to prevent him from switching out. That being said, we now have a poisoned Toxic Iris, but we do have Light Screens up. As I'm looking to go for my next play, I actually misclicked. And so we see that he goes for a wish as I go for light screen again, because I was hovering over the light screen and I was thinking, okay, I've gone for the light screen, I'm going to go for the reflect now. And then while I was hovering over the area, I accidentally clicked and was like, okay, well, we saw it was kind of like a null turn. We are going to take toxic damage. He throws up a wish. We didn't do any damage. So what we need to do now is, figure out what our next step is. So looking at it, I thought, okay, he's either going to volt switch or he might try to go for another toxic, stay in, expecting maybe for me to go hyper voice and get healed up. So I'm just going to go for a wish. So I get hurt by the poison. He goes for the toxic again. I'm already poisoned. That doesn't do anything. I go for the wish, and I'm able to get healed up. So now, I'm thinking he's probably going to switch out. So I'm just going to go for some damage and go for a hyper voice, thinking he could be going into like the Heatran. Because at this point, whatever I switch into, he could try to toxic it, which wouldn't be ideal. Or he can volt switch to try to get some better positioning. So I go for the hyper voice. He goes for a toxic again. He's really expecting me to make some switches. Does about 48%. We get healed back up. At this point we see he is a leftovers variant. And that's big for me because I know that he's not going to be able to do a lot of damage to specifically Como-O and my Sylveon. So I'm thinking this is pretty good for me. So we see the leftovers, and next we are thinking, okay, what's he going to do at this point? And I'm giving myself a couple different options, and in the end, I decide to swap out into my Mew because I felt like I was racking up a lot of toxic damage, and I'm not going to lie, I really couldn't remember what I did there for a second, which is why I clicked the next button. But we go into Mew because I'm thinking I'm taking a lot of damage on my Sylveon. I do know we need to keep this around. This is one of our really good Mega Charizard answers. It can also hit a Suicune behind us up, and we can set up screens. So I would like to maybe not take as much damage. So we switch into Mew, and this wasn't something I thought of at the time, but was actually a pretty good play on my part, like not thinking. We do get the Synchronize as we switch in, so then his Jolteon, which at this point we've decided is a little bit more of it's got some HP investment at this point, and it's got Toxic and Wish. We also know that this is going to be pretty good for us, so he can't stall us out. So we go into our Mew, and like I said, our Mew's pretty utility this week. So at this point, I just decide to go for a knockoff as he switches into the Heatran. We see the Heatran also loses leftovers. At this point, I kind of talked about this in the previous team builder, but I figured if the Donphan wasn't coming, then Heatran had to be a defensive version. So I'm thinking he's probably going to go for like Stealth Rocks here. Stealth Rocks, maybe like a Roar. With Mew, it's always tough to tell what a Mew's going to do until they actually come in. So I go for the knockoff. At this point, he's probably thinking, okay, he sees, if he's calcing, he sees I don't have any attack investment. I am max speed and max HP. So at this point, I decide to go ahead and get some switch initiative and see what he wants to do, thinking he may want to go for like some Stealth Rocks here. So we're going to go ahead, and we have leftovers. We're going to get some recovery. We are toxic, which is a little unfortunate. And he switches into the Charizard as we go to our U-turn, which lets us into our Inteleon. Kind of skipped a little bit into the next turn, but I went into Inteleon because A, we're faster 100% of the time. B, this is kind of our dedicated Charizard answer for the weather, because knowing that he's going to Mega Evolve and potentially go for that Solar Beam, we want to be able to potentially freeze that Charizard in its tracks and be able to take it out super easy. So what we're going to do is actually go for our Rain Dance here. So we see the Drought come up, Rain Dance happens as he goes for a Roost, expecting me to go for damage. If I was like a Specs variant with Hydro Pump, I was going to be doing a ton of damage. And even in the Sun, Flamethrower and Air Slash, and if he was going Weather Ball, I actually live all of those. So the only thing he really could have done to KO me just right off the bat is have that Solar Beam. So when I saw this, it made me think, okay, he probably doesn't have Solar Beam then, or else he probably would have just taken the hit and then roosted later as he knocked me out with Solar Beam. So I figure he probably doesn't have Solar Beam, and now we're up with the light. We also had the light screen as well, which is another reason why he probably didn't go for damage. So we do have Rain up now, His Charizard's in, so we know that he's going to make a switch. So we're going to go ahead and click U-turn, assuming that he's going to switch out. We see the Suicune come in, and that gives us a perfect opportunity to U-turn right into our Thundurus. Now that we're sitting in front of the Suicune, we see leftovers again. We now know that his Heatran was leftovers, his Jolteon was leftovers, and his Suicune was leftovers. So he's definitely trying to get back as much health as he possibly can, definitely indicating a fairly bulky team. Now thinking, okay, he does not want to stay in against my Thundurus, especially where I have Rain up. He might be thinking this guy could be like Specs Thunder, and Specs Thunder is doing a crap ton of damage to the Suicune. I didn't really calc it beforehand because I wasn't running the set, but I do think that it's more than likely, if not a guaranteed OHKO, like pretty damn close. So at this point, I know he's going to be switching out, and I'm curious what his answer to Thundurus is, whether it's like an Assault Vest Rillaboom, or if he thinks that he can go directly into Jolteon. So I'm just going to go ahead and sub up here. So I click sub as we see him go into Latias. So we take, damage for the substitute, and then he goes for the Psychic as we end up going for the Dark Pulse. I was mostly doing this to check to see how much damage it was going to do. I figured he was going to have something to break my sub, whether it was like a Draco Meteor or a Psychic. But we see it do about half, and that was a pretty high roll. Maximum for the Dark Pulse, based on calcs, was doing about 52%. If he's fully HP, which this is kind of what it looked like it was based off of that damage. And at that point, I'm thinking, if I would have nasty plotted, could we have OHKO'd this? And I did the calcs, and there was it was like 60% chance that we were going to knock out after a nasty plot. So at this point, I'm like, okay, we do have some knowledge on this Latias. We also see that he is going to have leftovers on this as well, so that's a fourth leftover Pokemon on his team. And I'm actually now seeing that this thing is going to be very, very difficult to take down looking at the rest of my team. So what I'm going to do here, knowing that he has the Latias and he's likely going to go for another Psychic, I'm going to go ahead and switch out at this point and go into my Sylveon, because that is my dedicated Latias answer. Being that we are so especially bulky, it's not going to be able to touch us really. Now that we're in, that does give us a chance to potentially throw off a Wish, set up our screens again, and with the threat of his team with this Latias and with the Charizard, we decide to go for the... I skipped that part. So we switch out, he goes for the Recover, he's back at 100%, and that's really where I'm like, oh man, like this thing, we just did all that damage and it's done. This thing is going to be super, super hard to take down. So now that's when we decide to go for the light screen as we see him go for Mystical Fire. So at this point, we know we have Psychic, Recover, Mystical Fire. My guess at this point is his last move is Defog, because nothing else is going to be really running Defog. Charizard's not going to be running Defog. So that's his way of getting rid of rocks. So we see the Mystical Fire, which makes a lot of sense because we do have some very potent special attackers on our team, and we have 3 of them at this point. Now with the light screen up, and knowing that that's what his set is, we decide to just go for some damage here. We take the toxic damage, he clicks Defog to get rid of our screens as we... Oh, I lied. Wrong part. So I go for a Wish instead, thinking, okay, he's possibly going to Defog to get rid of screens, or he's going to swap into something like a Rillaboom or a Charizard here so that he can potentially take out or get a hit off and make me sacrifice my Sylveon or have something else take damage. He defogs to get rid of the screens. We go for the Wish, thinking we can either stay in and receive that Wish, or it's going to do some damage to us and we're going to be able to take that Wish back. It's not going to be able to knock us out. It may after Toxic, but we would be okay. With the Wish up though, we decide to go into Thundurus as he goes into Mega Charizard, I'm getting it mixed up, all sorts of mixed up now. So, this was a really long battle, not gonna lie, and we're already like 14 minutes into this video, and I'm only on turn 15. So I'm gonna try to make it go a little bit faster. We go for the light screen, thinking that he's probably not gonna go for a Defog again. If he does go for like the Psychic, we're going to be able to force a defog on him. Next time we can get something in that can take a hit like a Thundurus. So we do see him switch in the Mega Charizard. He goes for the Air Slash. We live it quite handily. We're able to get the Wish off. We get the Wish back from our previous Wish. We now switch into Thundurus. There it is. So our Thundurus gets healed back up as he goes into his Latias. And at this point, I'm thinking, okay, should I just go straight for the Nasty Plot? Or do I go for the sub again? What do I do? And I actually start thinking, I don't know that I should stay in with my Latias, or with my Thundurus, because he is going to be faster than us, and we're going to take damage beforehand, before we get our sub up. And if we take a Psychic and can't get a for whatever reason, can't get a sub up, we actually, I think we were going to regardless, but then once the sub's up, we can't Nasty Plot because he takes out our sub as we Nasty Plot, and then we die. So I actually decide to switch out of our Thundurus and go into our Mew, expecting the Psychic to come out. We see a Mystical Fire though, and the special attack falls on our Mew, which we're totally fine because we're not running any special attacks. My thought here was, I'm going to click Knockoff next. So he can either go into Heatran and take a knockoff, or I can U-turn to get some momentum. And that is what I end up doing. In just a second, you'll see. He switches out, goes from the Heatran, because I figure Heatran's his answer, that's what it was last time, so I'm able to U-turn directly into our Como-O. And this is a really great matchup for us, because we can either go for Body Press if we expect him to stay in, we can go for a Toxic, expecting him to switch out into the Latios, or Latios. We can also set up our Stealth Rocks here. So I'm actually thinking that he's going to come back in with his Latias, because it makes sense that I go for a fighting type move. So I'm thinking, okay, that's one way that we can get down the Latias, is we can click Toxic and get that thing Toxic as it comes in, excuse me. But we see him switch into the Suicune, and we Toxic the Suicune, and I was so pumped with this play. Had he gone into the Latias, that would have been really great, because we could have, started getting some chip damage on it, and eventually wore it down. However, the Suicune is a huge thing to get Toxic, because now it can't outstall us if it goes for like sub Calm Mind. So I was extremely happy with that play right there. And now that the Suicune's in, I'm thinking I can get some free rocks up, because he's got to either swap into his Latios, or he's going to try to start Calm Mind setup. And I don't really care either way, because Body Press is going to be doing a decent amount of damage. So I decide to go ahead and get my rocks up as he goes for Scald. If I get burned, I'm not too worried about it. We'll see him actually go for Scald again here as I go for the Dragon Claw, again expecting the Latias to come in, and we get the burn as we go for that Dragon Claw. I'm just thinking this Latias has to be switching in at some point, but I guess that makes sense. If I'm being completely honest, Suicune's probably pretty bulky. We saw from that damage and being burned, it wasn't doing a whole lot. So we see the Suicune is pretty crippled now. It's not going to be able to do what it could potentially doing. Our Muay Thai is burned, but that's honestly not the end of the world, as we're meant to be more of a bulky set. So we lose our light screens. He brings out the Rillaboom as I swap out into Inteleon. Yeah, so we go into Inteleon thinking, okay, maybe this is a potential like swap into the Charizard then, or into the Heatran to try to do something. But I was so convinced once the rocks were up, the Latias was going to be coming in. So I switched out into the Inteleon expecting that. But then he ends up going into the Rillaboom, so we just go right back out into Como-O, because that's our Rillaboom answer, expecting him to either go for like a knockoff or a U-turn here. And so we see him actually go for the Grassy Glide as we switch in, right? So now that he's in, I expect him to go for the U-turn. He probably figured out we're defensive by that in the Heatran. So we actually click Toxic here, hoping that we would either be faster or stay in, or again, he could be going into the Latias, but he makes the play into the Heatran, where we're able to fire off a Body Press at this point, because I've decided at this point Latias is not coming in. So he goes for the Taunt as we go for the Body Press. We get a good chunk of damage off. We are burned, which I didn't know affects Body Press, but apparently it does. Grassy's terrain is up, so we are actually getting some additional healing back from the Grassy terrain, which is really nice. And then the time that he switches into the Latias, I feel like I make a pretty decent play and go into the Inteleon, expecting him to, not want to stay in with the Heatran. So what's a potential switch in here? Maybe the Charizard. So I expect the Charizard to come in, but he goes into the Latias instead. And we're gonna go for the Ice Beam just to see how much damage we can do. Does 46%. He goes for the Mystical Fire that's gonna lower our special attack. So we know that regardless of what happens, we're not going to be able to take him out next turn because our special attack is dropped. So at this point, I figure he's going to go for the Defog. So we're going to click U-turn with him going for the Defog. So he takes 24%. We go into our Mew, and he actually goes for the Recover at this point. And so now I'm back in this scenario of, do I click Knockoff or do I click U-turn? And in this scenario, I click U-turn, I believe. Yep, so he goes into the Suicune I go for Knockoff this time. That's right, I go for Knockoff. He loses his items on his Suicune. Now his Suicune really just is not going to be doing anything. It can't set up behind a sub, which I was pretty convinced at this point. The way he was playing with it made a lot of sense. So at this point, he goes for the Scald as we stay in. We see that that's right. We went for the Roar there, and I was just hoping, beyond hoping, that Charizard was going to come out and take 50% of its health. We see the Rillaboom come out, though, and that's not super ideal for me because I didn't want him to go for a knockoff, but I knew that Como-O was going to be our best answer for this, so I actually decided, I'm going to risk it and go for the U-turn, because if he's not Scarf, then we're faster. And based on damage from earlier, I figured he was Adamant, so he could have been an Adamant Scarf, but I really just didn't see that against my team. So I go for the U-turn. We see that we're faster. I figure he's going for knockoff or something. I figured the knockoff was coming, but he goes for the U-turn instead, which we sacrifice our Sylveon to. That was our play. But that does give us an advantage as he does go into the Suicune, and now I have the chance to, do some damage to the Suicune. So I go into the Como-O, he starts to Calm Mind up, and we're just going to go ahead and click Body Press. I thought it was going to take out the Suicune, but it was actually pretty bulky. Toxic almost takes it out, but not quite. So we're going to go for the Dragon Claw, again, just in case the Latias switched in for whatever reason, because he's not going into the Heatran, and we take out the Suicune. So that huge threat of Suicune is now nullified. We see Charizard come in now. And I figure an Air Slash, I did the calcs, and Air Slash was doing like 74 to like 92 or something like that. So it was more in his favor that he knocks me out with an Air Slash, and I really didn't want to take that. And I was looking at everything else. I figured he might have Weather Ball, and if he did go for the Weather Ball, I'm bulletproof. So I figured he wasn't going to go for that. So I think he's going for Air Slash, so I'm going to go right into my Thundurus. But then he shows the Flamethrower and just annihilates Thundurus. And at the time, I was thinking, okay, that's probably the best move I could have made. I technically could have gone into like Moltres and taken partial damage, and then I think I was taking like 40% in the Sun, and then I was doing enough with my Flamethrower to knock him out. However, that would bring in the Heatran, and I didn't want that, and now Sylveon was gone, so I figured let's make a risky play going to Thundurus. Yeah, that clearly didn't work, and we lose our Thundurus. And at the time, I was like, okay, that's fine. That gives us a chance to go directly into our Inteleon and set up our rain. So he can either stay in and roost, predicting that, or he can switch out. One thing to note, I am running Surf, and a Surf in the Sun was doing max like 51%. So I had to get like the highest of high rolls to be able to knock this Charizard out, which I was like, do I trust it? I don't think I do. So I'm just going to go ahead and click, sorry if I keep scrolling, but I'm just going to go ahead and click what we've always been clicking so that we can get our Inteleon set up in a good position. So we set up our Rain Dance as he goes into the Rillaboom, and we are going to get a little bit of health back because of the grassy terrain. Totally fine. So now I figure he's going to go for either Grassy Glide or a U-turn. Like, that's all he's been clicking so far. And which one is he going to click? I'm guessing probably U-turn at this point, because he's going to expect me to predict the Grassy Glide. So I'm actually going to go into our Moltres at this point, hoping to get the Flame Body burn. Get no burn, and we do see the U-turn. So I'm thinking he probably is going to go into Jolteon here, because that's the only thing that's fast enough to do anything to me. But he ends up going into the Latias, and I'm thinking, and this is where it clicked that I had nothing for this Latias anymore, because even the Choice Specs Hurricane, which I couldn't miss at this point, was doing like 76% or something like, or it was like max of 76 as low as 57 or something like that. And so on average, we're probably hitting about 60. And I was thinking, oh no, like that's a battle that we win in the long term, but we don't have that long, to be completely honest, with how long, you know, we could potentially miss Hurricanes, and, you know, Hurricane has pretty low PP. So I was thinking we would have to get a confusion. He'd have to hit himself. Otherwise he can just kind of roost up. So I figure at this point, he's likely going for the Defog to be able to save the Charizard. He was either going to do that or go for the Mystical Fire so that I couldn't hit as hard. But at this point, if he would have done the calc, he might have realized that I wasn't super bulky, because I did 10%. Oh, I keep scrolling. Sorry about that. So I'm thinking he's probably going to go for Defog, expecting me to go for like a U-turn, and then he thinks, oh, I can roost that off. So he goes for the Defog, like we think, and then we go for the Hurricane and get the critical hit. Like, I'm really sad this wasn't in the original, like, I don't have the original video, but like, while we were waiting for these turns to happen, I was like, I have no idea how I'm going to take this Latios out. I was really upset that we had lost Thundurus, because I'm thinking the only way we could have handled this Latios was with a nasty plot Thundurus. We were at full health because we had got that wish, and I was so upset, and I was just like, I have no idea how I'm going to take this down anymore. He's faster than my Como-O, and I was at 82%, so I lived a Psychic, but I couldn't take any more damage, so he would have had to switch into it. And I just was not looking forward to dealing with this. Like, I could have got a Toxic off, and that was kind of like that was my only plan at this point. And I still needed my Como-O for the Rillaboom and the Jolteon and the Heatran. So I was in a little bit of a pickle until this crit happened. And I feel like up until this point, it was fairly even, but the battle was definitely more in his favor. But this switched it. As soon as this happened, I feel like I was immediately in the driver's seat with this crit. Very unfortunate. I felt so bad about it, but at the same time, I was also like, that's my biggest threat gone. We see him go into the Heatran, and we go ahead and just go directly into our Como-O. He goes for the Stealth Rocks. That was kind of a to-be-expected play. I was doing the calcs on the Hurricane, and we were only doing like 20-something%. We hadn't seen all his moves yet, and in fact, we had only seen Taunt, so I was thinking he's probably got like Ancient Power, so he's going to go for the Ancient Power and knock out my Moltres. Can't have that. So we're going to go ahead and switch into Como-O, who's going to be able to take that hit. We resist everything else that's in the rain. So, like, Flash Cannon's not going to be doing a lot. Any Fire type move he goes for isn't going to be doing a lot. We're burned, so if he's got Toxic, that's not going to do anything. So that's why we go into Como-O. We're able to heal up a little bit. Just kidding, because I thought Grass was still here, but it's not. But now we're in front of this Heatran, and we can go ahead and just, I think, click Stealth Rock. He goes for the Taunt. That was a good play on his part. I completely forgot about the Taunt. So now he goes into the Rillaboom as we decide to swap into our Mew to get rid of the rocks. So we also know that we are faster than him at this point because we saw that we were faster with the U-turn. I did a calc for how much a Grassy Glide was going to do, and if he had been Life Orb or banned, it would have taken us out. But it was actually a roll at this point. I want to say like highly in our favor. I want to say it was like max of 36 or 37. And so I'm like, I got to get rid of these rocks because Moltres could be very pivotal moving into the later part of these games to be able to get some big damage off, and especially for this Rillaboom. And I didn't want to swap in currently. So we're going to go ahead and just click Defog and get rid of the rocks. So we see no Grassy Glide. Instead, he goes for the U-turn, which does take us out, and he goes into the Jolteon. At this point, I'm feeling pretty confident. I know that there's like these 4 Mons in front of me. I think I actually believe that Charizard is just has the potential to just wreck me. So I know that like we still have a chance, but it's a very slim chance in my mind. And I'm kind of playing through the worst case scenarios, right? But I know with this Jolteon in, we just go straight into Como-O. that's our answer here. He goes for the Volt Switch now that he's free to do it, and goes into the Charizard to get his Sun up as we go for the Stealth Rocks. So I had the thought here that he's probably going to Volt Switch and then go into the Charizard. That was what made 100% the most sense. It was either that or he was going for a Wish so that he could heal up either his Charizard or his Rillaboom. I think he had the thought though that I was running Toxic, and that could have potentially been a problem if he was doing some switching, but I was thinking about going Toxic, but in the end I went for Stealth Rocks because I knew that this Charizard was going to be a big problem, and I knew I needed it down at least 50%. At this point, I'm thinking though he's gonna roost. Like, he's gotta roost, because if I go for a Toxic here and the rocks are up and my Muay Thai goes down, I can just go directly into Inteleon, and I'm gonna be able to get my Rain Dance up, force the switch, and then he has to come in. I go into Moltres. I live with the Moltres, whether he goes for the Air Slash or the Flamethrower. And then because he switched out and back in and I got the rocks up, he's going to take 50% and I can take him out with my Moltres. The only problem was Jolteon was there. So I'm not going to lie, at this point, I was feeling like, okay, I've got to make a big play. He's going for Air Slash here. In my mind, I'm like, if he's attacking what's in front of him, the most damage he's going to be able to do to me is with Air Slash. And so I have to make the big play and go into my Inteleon, assuming that, I knew I lived a hit from the Inteleon, or with Air Slash and with the Flamethrower. And then I also knew that there was a very high likelihood he was going to roost here. So making the risky play, we decide to switch into Inteleon, and hopefully it works out for us. And it does, because he goes for the roost, which makes a lot of sense, right? Like, he probably expected me to switch. But at this point, I think this 100% was the play that won me the game, because now I live the Air Slash from him and I'm faster, so I can't be flinched. So I'm guaranteed to get up get up the Rain Dance and threaten him out. So as you can see, that's what we're going to do. We're going to get the Rain Dance up. He goes for Air Slash, does 77%. We go for the Surf now. We take out the Heatran. I was actually expecting him to go into the Rillaboom, because I was like, oh, the Rillaboom actually lived the Surf in the rain. And that was going to be doing quite a bit of damage, but still he was going to be living it pretty well. Like, he was going to take like 30% or something like that. And then Grassy Glide takes us out. But he ends up going into the Heatran, and I take out the Heatran. So I'm thinking, what's he going to go into now? He goes into the Charizard to set up the Sun. And I'm thinking, I either have to sacrifice something here, or, I just have to go big. And it's either I sacrifice Inteleon or I sacrifice Moltres, because I'm looking at my team, and I know I need Como-O for the Rillaboom and for the Jolteon. That's how I finished those two mons off, is a combination of Toxic and Body Press and chip damage as he's kind of pivoting around. So I'm looking at this and I'm thinking I could go into Moltres, but then that risks him getting back up to full health, and then I don't have enough turns, or I don't have the opportunity to get my Rain Dance up again. I need to make a decision. Do I go into the Moltres, or do I risk it and go for that max roll with the Inteleon? And I decide I've got to go for the max roll. And if he takes me out here, then I get a free switch into the Moltres, which he's probably going to take out with Ancient Power, because that's the last move I figured that he's going to have over Solar Beam, or else the Moltres did kind of wall him. So I'm thinking I just have to go big here, and I have to click Surf. So I click Surf, and we get the KO. And I freaked out right here in the normal video. I was just like, oh my gosh, what is going on? We got the max roll. I didn't realize until after the game was over, and someone pointed out that we're at 13% health with Torrent. So that was an easy KO all day long. That was doing like 65% minimum with Torrent. So, oh my goodness, yeah, like that's this Inteleon play was what won me the game. Playing risky with Inteleon here absolutely won me the game. So at this point, we take down the Charizard with our Surf thanks to our Torrent boost. We see him go into the Jolteon, and I expect him to be faster than me. And so I'm just going to click a move and let my Inteleon go down so that Como-O can just come in and wrap things up. But we see that we're faster. And I clicked Ice Beam thinking, oh, maybe he tries to go for something like try to fake me out and go into the Rillaboom or something. I don't know why he would, but I was fully expecting like a Thunderbolt or a Volt Switch or something here. And we're faster, so we do 37%. Knowing that we were Torrent, a Surf actually probably was going to be doing a little bit more, and we maybe could have lived. But then either way, like I was going to be sacking Inteleon here, so we do the damage. He does a Volt Switch. He goes into the Rillaboom. Takes a little bit of rock damage, but he does get the Grassy Surge up. So that heals him up just a little bit as we go into our Moltres. So at this point, we know that we're faster. We're going to be able to take this thing out. Grassy Glide's not going to do anything. He can't go for a knockoff. So we're just going to go ahead and click Flamethrower. Take out the Rillaboom. He goes into Jolteon. And in my head, I'm like, okay, he's low. He's toxic. Como-O can just come in and win this after he takes out my Moltres. But then the rocks are there, and it just takes out the Jolteon. So Como-O's rocks end up getting that last kill, and we win 2-0. This was such a crazy battle. It was really long. It was about, let's see, it's turn 49. The original video I made for this was like an hour and 12 minutes long or something like that, if you include like the team builder and stuff. And so we're a little bit shorter, still a long battle. A lot to think about as we dissected this one. But we win. We pull out the 2-0 win. Like I said, it really came down to that play with Inteleon of switching that out. If there were two major points in this battle, I guess there were three, right? So the first one was Como-O getting the Toxic on the Suicune and essentially nullifying the Suicune. The second was switching the Inteleon in. Right? Oh no, the second was the crit on the Latias from Moltres' Hurricane, and then the last was switching into Inteleon and then just doing the Inteleon things to take out the Mega Charizard to clear the way for Moltres and Como-O to just finish the game. So those are the top 3 moments of the battle. I was so excited that we won this one. It was a very, very tough battle. Like I was saying during the battle, the Suicune initially was super, super scary, and then once that was kind of taken care of, the Latias, I realized that was a big problem for me, and I let the way I could take care of that pretty handily go down. In the end, we did get lucky with the crit for sure, and at the end of the battle, I was thinking we were super, super lucky because I had thought we had got the max roll on the Surf Inteleon going up against the Mega Charizard. It wasn't. It was Torrent. If I would have remembered that, I would have been like, oh yeah, Torrent, this absolutely takes it out. At the time, though, I was just going like, oh my goodness, we got the max roll. We got the crit. I guess we're meant to win this one. But in the end, I do think that we played really well towards the end game. Very excited to say that we are now 2-4. We're still in the playoff hunt. We do basically have to win out at this point. A lot of teams are like 4-1. There's only one undefeated team left. Joshua at 5-0, and then there's a bunch of us in that like 1-1, at least at this point, 1-4, 2-3. So there's still a lot of battling to get into those last couple playoff spots, and I do think that we have some pretty good matchups going up towards the end of the season with our last few battles. It's very, very possible. So our goal is to make it to playoffs. If we just squeak in the last spot, I will be more than happy to say that we made it to the playoffs. So that's all I've got for today, though. Thank you for watching. I know this video still ended up being pretty long, but I did want to give the battle justice and wanted to get it out for all of you to see because it was a really great battle. I feel like it was one of the best battles I've been in recently. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it, and we will check it. I don't know. I don't know what I'm trying to say. We will see you next week for our Week 7 battle. Thank you for coming by. Super appreciate it, and we'll see you next time.